So, I think the title of this workshop, one of the titles, because there are many, is The User is the Content. So my presentation is really a scenario on, well, the presentation is titled 2020, The User is the Public Service, or not. Does anybody know? It's turned on. Maybe. So, we are part of the, just for you to know, we are part of the European Commission, and we are a research center, and we are based in Sevilla, so we are quite lucky. And we support the European Commission with evidence and with scientific evidence of the policies. In particular, in my case, in information society, and in particular on the role of new technologies in the public sector. And what we do is we do desk research, and I will today present basically some internal research. We also have expert groups, such as this one, and we also use external expertise. And by all means, on our website, please register. We have a call for interest always open for potential suppliers of research. So I invite you to have a look at it, because we constantly buy and produce research in this field. What I'm going to talk about. First, setting the context of Web 2.0, so-called eruptions in our own jargon, and the not-so-eruptive e-government. I'll bring some evidence on how Web 2.0, I'll use this acronym with you. It's just one name as another. How Web 2.0 is applied in the public service delivery. I will analyze this on the light of some trends in public service, outside technology, in the real public services, and I will end up inviting two additional guests, if I'm pleased for them, to build up some scenarios, to connect the dots that I presented in this. So, the context, first of all, the approach is really, we first look at trends in technology, in society and government, and we extrapolate from this one. This is how we, in this case, how the scenario I will present is built in this way. And the second approach is that we use bright and dark scenarios. So we look at positive and negative scenario. And this is only very early results, not to predict future, but to structure the thinking. So the growth of Web 2.0, you know everything about it. The only thing I can tell you is that we consider not only content production, but more very important, the filtering and sharing activity of users, and also the infrastructure sometimes. Phone, voice over IP, peer-to-peer shows that the infrastructure can be provided by the users as well. On the other hand, online public services do not grow as viral. This is the supply of online service of transactions online in Europe, and this is the usage. So there is a paradox, there is a low take-up, and this is happening in e-government, in e-health, e-learning, in all the public services. Of course, there are cases of good practice and of high impact, but they are specific services. In general, there are problems in take-up of e-government. So let's bring some evidence on how can Web 2.0 and user-generated content be used in e-government and in public services. Catalonia has redesigned their portal with very little money, by the way, including the citizens in the web space of the department. It's kind of embraced as a flagship Web 2.0 in their philosophy of service delivery and in their portal. The US shows the crowdsourcing or the expert involvement in patent application is the first example of social software being used in the legal public decision-making process. Basically, the US Patent Office has endorsed a project and financed a project where groups of experts using social networking and reputation management tools are engaged in the selection of patents. But also, you have bad case. Just the very simple usage of Web 2.0 applications can be very traditional. One example is the US podcast on health. It's traditional push communication from government to citizens, simply use delivery and other means. It's embracing the technology, but not the attitude. What is more interesting is that not only how government use use Web 2.0 in their public service delivery, but that the very public services are delivered by the users themselves using Web 2.0 applications. So users are able to deliver or get engaged in the delivery of public services. Examples, using public information and Google Earth on Google Maps, users map, in this case, where you can buy a bus pass in San Francisco. In Japan, during the latest earthquake, of course it's not over 2007, blogs were used to manage information, peer-to-peer information from people in need of for heating or tools to donors. Social networking is used in the inclusion of minorities. I don't know if you know Zopa, the website for lending, for peer-to-peer banking, where lenders and the demand of money, meet to bypass basically financial intermediaries. And of course, as we heard today, people in health, people with specific syndromes which are not being dealt with because they do not have the so-called orphan diseases, the diseases which do not have a critical mass to reach the attention and public services, are able to organize self-help groups to help each other dealing with this. This is another long tail of user needs, people with specific needs which do not have a critical mass where the public universal service can be delivered, are delivered through self-help groups. And then other examples, how to rate and to give feedback on the public health delivery, on the hospitals. In the UK, there is this very interesting initiative, Patients' Opinion, where patients share their experience about how the hospital delivered their service, and they rate the hospitals. And what is interesting is that the impact is actually not confrontational between the service delivered between the National Health Service and the users, but in more than 50% of the cases it is constructive. And of course political communication, but I think we are all aware of this, is the main area of impact. Now, these trends are not only technology-driven, they are not a passing path. They link directly to some ongoing trends and vision in public services. In e-government, usually we do scenario building exercise with involved experts, and the vision they develop talk about user-centered e-government, personalized public services, which are delivered by a mixture of public and private actors. Social inclusion happens mainly through social networks rather than public services. Personalized in the health, patients are more and more engaged in discussing with the doctors the treatment, they share information horizontally, and in learning there is a shift from teaching to learning, a change in relationship between teachers and students, more collaboration in the classroom, and these are the visions of public services in a nutshell. But also Web 2 application exactly impact the key foundation of public services. Legitimacy and authority. Think of reputation management system. Think of censorship. Market failure. Think of eBay, of reputational system of feedback in Amazon. How this reduces the information asymmetries and therefore changes the role of government. Think of public value production. I've shown some examples where users together deliver public value. And regulation, of course. Users check and monitor if people are parking in the street. Users are checking the roaming tariffs of mobile phones. There was a big initiative in Italy to scrap the fees for mobile phones, which was launched through blogs. So the very foundation of public services are directly impacted by this phenomenon. So finally, I invited two so-called experts to connect these dots, which I've just shown before. And the two selected guests are Candide for the positive scenario and Hobbes for the negative scenario. So what Candide would say of 2020 is the emancipation of civil society. I'm sorry, it's full, but it was done in a bit of a hurry. Network citizens perform public tasks, control government, and also control fellow citizens. Citizens are actively engaged in political discussion, but maintaining the Wikipedia neutral point of view attitude. Also, citizens are more and more informed using, for example, freely available geographical information systems like Google Earth on monitoring what is happening in the public sphere in their country. Network users also act as bridge to other communities and to people excluded, not having access to the internet, for example. Public sector information content is widely available and usable, so that private providers and individual citizens are able to build on this. Public services online are easy to access, standardized, clearly explained, usable, including user feedback in their performance. Problems and failures are dealt openly through this blog attitude between users and public sector. And whenever services are provided by public sector, the involvement on user feedback ensures equity and the quality of service delivery. Public worker ethics is reinforced by this open attitude. There is stronger internal cohesion using collaboration tools such as, for example, delicious or a referral system. There is a capacity to create a stronger cohesion within the organization between, for example, what are the political needs and what are the administrative needs. At the same time, there is higher external respect by citizens. Public sector becomes more innovative because workers, individual workers, are able to perform these innovations. We have examples in Japan where online forums being organized by government were not successful because nobody were participating until individual workers, individual public sector workers, took the initiative of setting up their own and animating their own forum, which were then able to attract more attention. And finally, of course, continuous consultation and ability to involve external experts in the policy-making process. So this is the positive vision. It doesn't mean that this is realistic. It does mean that it's a tool to highlight the areas of change. In fact, when we see the negative scenario, we see hopes. And I think these two actually experts can be used very much for user-generated content as well. We think that we mentioned that users are willing to pay more than the minimum fee. Candide would say yes, Hobbes would say no. How many are willing to pay more than the minimum fee, for example, for downloading music? And in this case, Usernet will not to produce public value, but to organize antisocial behavior. And we have examples of this, either in criminal activities or in, for example, not flash mobs, but in Italy, that's what in Spain we call macro botellón. Suddenly meetings of thousands of youngsters to drink in the street. Like 3,000 people meeting in the street. Transparent information used for criminal activities or for instrumental political issues. So when you start to be more open, then the feedback is negative. Public servants fear the public blame of blogs and therefore act in a very protective and secretive manner, always respecting the role of law and following the procedure. Internal checks become overwhelming. Blogs in the public service are simply a showcase. They are used as a blatant marketing tool, but they are not used by citizens. Government acts with much more heavy and policy attitude. There's increasing distrust, but also distrust between citizens, the balkanization of the society. The easier the collaboration and the creation of these communities online, sharing common wavelength, having the same taste, can very easily lead to balkanization of society, to communities distrusting each other. And finally, the public service delivered through private providers becomes much more difficult, and in one case, for example, if we rely on Google for delivering services, of course, the public service becomes hostage of platforms provided by private actors. So if you see, this is not a consistent picture, but it highlights risks which can emerge from this. So in order to stay within the 10 or 15 minutes, I will finish here. The main point is this scenario captures the main issue. These scenarios are not designed to be consistent, nor to be realistic, but to highlight what are the risks and the opportunities of Web 2.0 in public service. That's it.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
You highlighted two opposite scenarios.